It is live now. We are live. And so we'll share for a few minutes and then start our discussion. Okay. And meanwhile, everybody, you can see us here. We are here. So we'll take a few minutes to share and then we'll join you. My Facebook's a little slow tonight. I should say a little slow. It's very slow. Hmm. Okay, so my computer seems to be having a little trouble tonight. And I'm closing as much as I can to get us resources back. As much as I can. Okay, here we are. Hello, Carmen. How are you? Hi, Dolores. Thank you for coming on both Facebook and YouTube. It's very nice. Please do share as much as you can on Facebook. For some reason, my system resources are very low today, and my Facebook was not moving at all. So I haven't been able to share to it much except to my own page. So, hi, Kay. Thank you for coming. And Amber, it's great to see you as always. And Kay says, shared. Carmen says, gremlins, Joe, seems like they're everywhere. I know. When it comes to activists like ourselves, I guess they get involved everywhere. So, welcome to the In-Depth Show. And my guest for tonight is Laura Fielding, Executive Director of the Red Berets.
Hello.
And board member of Whole Washington. And Laura and I are going to talk about the Fighting on All Fronts strategy tonight. And I think I'm going to start off by asking her what her current view of the Fighting on All Fronts strategy actually means.
And I am putting this in 3 other Twitter groups. I shared the YouTube link, and I'm ready to go.
Okay, great.
Yeah. And so it'll just take me just a second to get my head around that. What does fighting on all fronts mean? It means that we recognize that the insurance lobby and pharma and all of the 1%, they are they have all the money. They have all of the they have all the lobbyists, and they are unified in their objective of protecting the profit motive. And they're very clever about doing that, about co-opting the language, and we are the grassroots, and we need to grow. We need to ask ourselves the question, those of us that are activists, on whatever our is our current level of involvement, whether we are sharing on social media, whatever, out organizing events, whatever our different ways of being involved and levels of involvement and how much time we contribute. I think we need to ask ourselves very seriously the question, how do we grow our movement in solidarity, always with the objective in mind of we're here to achieve a national improved Medicare for all single payer system for the United States of America, seeing as we are in the middle of a global pandemic, and nearly every other developed nation has some form of universal health care. Some of them have single payer. And what do we need to do to get to that goal? And so fighting on all fronts would be recognizing what I just named, which is the state of urgency and the amount of money and power that is unified completely around protecting the profit motive. So what we have currently, and what we've had in the single payer movement as long as I've been involved, and from everyone I've learned from for much, much longer than that, is not a unified front. It has been, different organizations wanting to brand themselves, or, sort of manage things. It's all about, this piece of legislation, this party, this organization. And I don't mean that we shouldn't care about our own brands or that we shouldn't have our own ideas, but what we do need to recognize is that everyone who is donating and contributing their very valuable working class time and energy towards healthcare justice, be it at the state level or the national or something integrated in between, which is what we're going towards. These are efforts that we should all be lifting up with whatever we should be lifting up, and understanding that that person over there in that organization, they might not have exactly the same way of strategizing as us, or they've kind of got their own, they've got their own
buttons.
Their own buttons. And they have their own ideas for, hey, I think we should do this kind of event, or this is how we're going to do this. Okay. And that is wonderful, because there's literally so many of us, especially if we continue to inspire and bring people in. If we can let people know there are ways for everyone to contribute to this movement for healthcare justice in the United States of America, something that can fit everybody's time and work schedule, their means, their level of tech skills and creativity. We are all very, very, very different minds, different backgrounds, different talents and skill sets. And the beautiful thing is, different orgs tend to uh, support different types of organizers. People will probably find themselves very drawn to a particular organization because it kind of matches their model, their organizing model, or their worldview, or uh, not worldview, but their sort of way of
Yes, their
being.
worldview.
Yeah, maybe
Yes,
that was
my
right.
worldview is relevant.
Yeah, I think so. So so the thing that we need to move towards now is like, this is actually wonderful. It's wonderful to have so many different organizations and so much diversity of thought, and implement. How are we going to do this? It's actually wonderful as long as we can remember that we are all pushing. We're pushing up, we're pushing out, we're pushing up. We're all needing to move towards the same goal, and it can be very, very easy to forget this, to get kind of caught in, this is the particular lens that I'm looking through, or if we support this over here, perhaps it diminishes this very important, so even through, just to take a second for, the MMT, which I'm I'm proud to report and chagrined to report that I'm still not finished with Stephanie's book. However, I did purchase the Audible version because I've just accepted that I'm going to want to listen to several chapters over and over. I forget which one that I'm on right now, and like chapter one, and I think some of it was really like, oh yeah, this is great, this is easy, I'm going to be able to follow it, and then some of it's like, oh God, no wonder. Okay, but this is wonderful because I'm gonna finish Berets and listen to it and just rewind and do that. Where was I going with that? Oh, I've started to wrap my head in a little bit more of a spacious way around, because before it was all just so, the kind of conflict between people that
So
were
tense.
the tensity, the tenseness and the tension and all of that stuff. Now there's been a little bit more space from it, and I'm starting to, man, I had a reaction where to the book where it was like, you actually kind of realize how angry you get at the fact that we pay taxes, and just like there's all these reactions, and one of my reactions is, how absolutely vitally important this is. So I can kind of almost think, those people that maybe were coming at whole Washington or state level efforts, if they're, and I know I'm going the long way around answering your question, Joe, about where I'm at with stuff, but I
Well,
think,
that's all right. I appreciate the stream of consciousness
yeah,
style
okay.
of thinking. That's okay.
Well, I can understand. I can almost understand that, people can kind of only put their attention, and their resources and their learning into so many things at once. So now, like really, really listening to this work, it does make me very, very well aware. Oh, I could see how, if people weren't over here in our shoes organizing with Whole Washington, maybe I would, with knowing the absolute vital importance of MMT, I might be looking over at that going, we really need you over here, like we need you to be over here. And actually, it's going to be too distracting to be over there and doing this. You know what I mean? So there is a little bit of spaciousness around people's concerns. Again, I think we've kind of gone through all of that, but just to say that, it is difficult to maintain this kind of unified consciousness because we are a whole bunch of different parts to a whole. The whole being every single individual, every single uh, nurse and physician, and who is an advocate for single payer, every person with a healthcare story out there. every organization, every action, every Medicare for All tweet that we share, like this whole field, this interconnected field of, and you see, this is because of the fabric, because of the fabric that we literally are creating with these berets. I think I truly do see the movement this way. How neat that we were kind of having a little discussion about a wheel earlier, Joe.
Yes.
How interesting. But we are very interconnected. And so you see, I can't just take this and say, well, this headband's going to be over here, and then whatever this little doohickey on the top of the beret is over. It's like it's all together. It's all of a piece. And
Yes, it's
and
all.
also being a holistic healthcare practitioner who works really quite specifically with the connective tissue field, because I'm a massage therapist, but I'm also a craniosacral practitioner, and I don't need to go all into that. I can say it's enough to tell you that I work with the connective tissue, and that is all manner of things in the body. When you pick up a tablecloth at one end of the table and create a wrinkle in the fiber, in the fabric, you can see it having ramifications all the way across the table. It wrinkles everything, you can see the lines, right? If you kind of grab the corner of the tablecloth.
Yes.
So it is difficult, in fact, almost impossible for me to conceptualize the single payer movement, the Medicare for All movement, as whole Washington is its own separate entity over there, and New York Health Act is over there, and California organizers and National Nurses United and the March for Medicare for All. I obviously understand that we are separate but interrelated entities and organizations, but one of the things that did make the March for Medicare for All does make the March for Medicare for All such a powerful, empowering, and beautiful idea is that literally all these different organizations came together to push on all fronts. That's what everybody's showing out in the streets in 56 locations across the United States to do. That's one way that I look at fighting, is showing up. So first of all, fighting on all fronts is showing up for each other and being out and being visible. But yeah, and so I just hope that everybody could kind of try to conceptualize that we are, as much as we might want to think of ourselves as these distinct entities, that is, those are constructs, and they are real, and they're also not real when you look at it as, like, really we're all people that want Medicare for all. Those are organizing constructs, but at the end of the day, we are a field of people with a common goal. And it would just behoove us to remember, as much as we have our disagreements, if we could have some kind of a mantra every day that is, thank you to every single activist who is doing something that is in service to educating people that we need national improved Medicare for all. That would be a beautiful thing. Yeah. So I don't know if I answered your question, because I didn't kind of do, bullet points of what is fighting on all fronts. Fighting on all fronts is, the March for Medicare for All is doing an event to protest Nancy Pelosi here at the end of this month. And we need national hearings. We need national improved Medicare for all. We need to make our list of demands and be out there putting public pressure. So that is one thing. Showing up for direct action is one thing.
Yeah, right. So the Nancy Pelosi event is coming up on October 30th.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, and And we are so interconnected as a movement. Like it really is. Whatever people's belief system is, if it's like quantum physics, and that's not a belief system, that's a real, but how you think about why we're connected or how this happens. Kenny Valentine just talks about things being, quite magical, but these things, there are a sense of timing. Some people are very faith based and they look at this as, through a religious lens. I don't really know if I can define it other than to say, we come into each other's lives and then we have these very, very interesting coincidences, these very interesting, and they are, I don't know what they are, but they're,
Yes, you know what they are.
well, I've always been a very skeptical, healthy skeptical, like with my holistic stuff. As much as I know that I work with energy, I've always been someone who wanted to really have my feet on the ground, and don't give me too much of that foo-foo stuff, because, and I always want to explain to people, oh, if this doesn't, I want to give people a very tangible explanation, because I think there's really a lot in new physics that would explain some of the phenomena that people are experiencing, but people want to hear about their bones and their muscles and like really physiological stuff. They don't want to be carried away.
When you speak of the new physics, are you talking about something beyond quantum physics?
No, just field phenomena and quantum physics. Yeah, but it hasn't. That stuff has not made its way into like how we understand. I don't feel that it really has made its way into the public consciousness about how we think of our health and how interconnected it is. I mean, somebody told me just the other day, my doctor said it's all in my head. That's the most ridiculous thing. Like, that's a doctor, right? But so our medical system has a long way to catch up with, whatever.
But quantum physics is still physics.
Mm-hmm.
And it uses wave models and particle models and a number of different kinds of models. But it's not like complex adaptive systems, which have a very radical concept, okay, of the interconnection, okay, of different things, and about how, as a result of the interconnections inside of a network, new phenomena can emerge.
Mm.
And that's not something that you get out of quantum physics per se, that I've gotten out of reading I've done, okay, in quantum physics. Yeah. But it is something I've gotten out of the reading and the writing I've done in the field of complex adaptive systems.
Well, that sounds like I need to do a lot more reading or audible listening.
Well, we all need to do a lot more reading, or audible listening. So that's very. But when we talk about fighting on all fronts and the strategy, okay, fighting, okay, on all fronts, we of course get into this idea, which was giving us so much difficulty 3 or 4 months ago, okay, of efforts at the national level, efforts at the state level, efforts at the local level, and how these interrelate, and the more serious problem of how do you pursue efforts at these different levels? How do you fight on all fronts so that the different fronts are reinforcing one another, as opposed to detracting from one another or distracting, from one another. And when we were approached by some people who thought in a different way, they were and are terribly concerned about the possibility of distraction, or wastage, okay, of effort.
Yeah.
Or actually dissipation, okay, of energy because we're working on too many fronts
Sure.
at once. So that is a legitimate fear.
Mhm. I agree.
They seem to think it was just counterproductive to be working at, different levels. Okay, and military analogies were used
Hmm.
as well. Like if you want to break through on a particular front,
Mm.
you have to focus your forces
Mm.
on a critical point. Uh, okay, but in a way, that's really just an analogy, okay, of a certain kind. And there
Mhm.
are other analogies too.
Well, I definitely can take that analogy and run with it, and turn it to fit what it is that we're. Okay. Um, Andre put this really well, and I won't be able to sort of repeat exact, but his interview that he did with Brianna Joy Gray a few came out sort of right, not too long before the marches.
Yes.
But she basically, the clip is excellent, and I have it bookmarked. And the question she asked him was, "What do you say to people who say that organizing at the state level will be a distraction, or just exactly what you were just saying, from our national efforts?" And Andre responded that it just doesn't match with what he has experienced to be the reality. So, to give you a really clear example, and I'm really happy that whoever's idea this was, if it was Sharif's, I think it was Sharif's, and then he's working closely with a couple of San Francisco organizers that led up the San Francisco March for Medicare for All. So they've come together to to start planning this event that local people and then some of us traveling from further afield will go and do on the 30th of October outside Pelosi's house. Um, and I'm so happy that Kenny Ballantyne will get a chance to film these two side by side threads. That one, the 30th of October, it's not, there is a whole list of demands, by the way, on the Mobilize link. It's not only national hearings. I think, if I'm recalling correctly, it would be that she co sponsors Medicare for All, that she strongly endorsed Medicare for All, that she put pressure on her caucus to vote. I mean, there's a whole list of demands um,
Yes.
that we're going to be aiming for in that action. And then a little bit less than a month later, people coming out to, and I'm getting to the answer to the question about.
Oh, it's okay. Go ahead.
And so coming out to Vancouver, Washington, which is being, as we discussed the other night, being organized by Leah Perkle and Rhonda Walker down there in Vancouver. And then, so here's an example of how what's going to bring people out to our Vancouver event. I'll speak to that first. They're really going to get into contacting everyone that they know from within the Democratic Party who helped push that vote for the 49th legislative district to endorse whole Washington.
Yes.
They're also going to be in touch with all of the coalition partners like Green Party of Washington, People's Party of Washington, the Black Panther Party. They're going to be reaching out to all of the other organizations and people that aren't organizing within the Democratic Party. But the common link is the here and now of Washington being able to get a hearing. So the sense of urgency, the sense of when you can get out into your community and say, we are all for national improved Medicare for all. We know we need that as a country. And actually, we have a bill right here, and sometimes, but not currently, an initiative. This is what you can support right now. People tend to get very engaged when it's something that is material change that they know, uh, as opposed to, you go to people and say, like, I'm not comparing this with the Pelosi event, because we also need to start having these events where we put very, very, very focused pressure on the people that we see to be the biggest roadblocks, of which Nancy Pelosi is absolutely at the very top of the list. She and Joe Biden, obviously. So, but we've built community around whole Washington, so it's not a comparison of, I think a lot of people will come out to protest Pelosi because all of the local progressives there hopefully know that she's an impediment to progress on so many issues. So hopefully that in itself, this real chance, I would think it certainly is my motivating. I was really a strong advocate, as were you, of replace Pelosi, force the vote, force the hearings, because people are still getting caught up on how force the vote, and it's like, no, it was force the conversation, force it into the national conversation, force the hearings. Obviously, those were a big piece of that. Anyway, so this is just a continuation of, now we get a chance. Of course, I want to take my chance to go and put a lot of pressure on this person that we have all long known what an impediment that she is to single payer legislation. And but I'm saying that, if the local organizers are also able to reach out to people who are working on AB, if they know some people, hey, we know those people that do a lot of work on AB 1400, or who are really, really active with CalCare. I bet they would love to hear all about, or to come out and help protest and put pressure. Damn right they would. So, so then all of those people that have built community around organizing the urgency and the kind of the local grassroots of California, now we get to the fact that we can increase those numbers potentially and so I would certainly hope if, anyway. So I guess my point is to get to the kind of military analogy of, like, well, how are we going to, if we're all around the castle, how are we going to storm the keep if we don't have any, if we're not all at this battering ram and stuff? Well, we also need more people at the battering ram. We actually need, and we need people to be able to spell us when we need breaks. We need more people. And so my argument is, well, that is what we're doing. When we can get out into our local communities, people tend to connect with it a little bit better, or let's just say they understand, they have decades of conditioning. Your average disenfranchised voter, they very much understand that the federal legislation, that it's gone. They know. You talk to any regular person and they're like, we don't even have any representation. So am I saying, like, we need to reinvigorate and revitalize, bring some hope and some promise of immediacy? Because if you go telling them, yeah, we're going to get national, I mean, I just think that there's such a thick layer of malaise and hell no, that's never happening. I'm not saying we should say that or feel that, but a lot of people do. So if we can engage them in local activism, always with the, yeah, I don't know. Now I'm just rambling, but those are my thought processes around it, is that we actually build the army for national improved Medicare for all by doing these efforts, these simultaneous efforts. And before I was reached out to about the San Francisco event, because we were doing, starting to sort of put into the planning stages this protest outside Senator Cleveland's office.
Yes, in Vancouver.
In Vancouver, the marches have what they have done for me is helped me kind of look to always taking also a step back from whole Washington to say, okay, if we're going to do this event for Senator Cleveland to put pressure on her demanding this hearing, is there anything that we can do right there at that same time that kind of shifts the focus outward, particularly as we are always trying to live stream or share some of what we're doing on social media, because
Yes.
that's a piece of the movement building. That's a piece of, number one, getting support for whole Washington and for whatever the national effort that we're doing. But also, this is about maintaining, and I would actually say, fanning the flames that are extinguishing of hope out there. So when people see a live stream of people outside Pelosi's office, or people gathering signatures when we were still gathering signatures, of those things are all things that can
Does fan the flames.
Yes, that's fanning the flames, and so but that was why I thought, let's also do a candlelight vigil, and that we can bring out to the national messaging of this is, we're tens of thousands of human lives are being systematically extinguished every single year. For-profit murder is really what it is. So
in talking about a candlelight vigil now.
Yes. So, we're going to do that right after. We're going to do that right after the protest. We'll go into kind of like a very nearby park, and Scott Denoyer and Anna will, excuse me, they'll kind of lead that up. And
right. So we're talking Vancouver now.
Yes.
Now we're talking about Vancouver.
Yeah.
Is there going to be a candlelight vigil also in San Francisco?
I don't think so. I think the event is just from 12 till, I hadn't heard anything about that, so I don't think so. It's from 12 until 2.
I see.
So loud megaphones, funeral garb, and there may be some more details. I can't really say more than that because they probably have more for us coming out that I'm not aware of. So I just know I'm showing up and I'm speaking, and I'll be there to protest Pelosi.
Okay, so I had some thoughts on something we were talking about, a little bit earlier today, which was the claim that there's a lack of analogy between what Canada went through during the 1960s and the situation we're going through here today.
Mm-hmm.
And one thing just suddenly came to mind, as the result of the work I've been doing, trying to get a full understanding of the financial particulars.
Mm-hmm.
That is that I sort of have the impression, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, of course, I sort of have the impression that when things started off in Canada, that even though the outlook might have been favorable for federal aid to come in, when things first started off in Saskatchewan,
Mm-hmm.
the funding for that whole province level program was coming from state taxation.
Mm-hmm.
Isn't that correct?
Well, I don't know.
Yeah, I think that might be true, except for I think Canada had a problem of, not a problem, but had a program for paying hospital expenses
Mm-hmm.
at that point. And that was prior to its actually bringing Medicare in.
Mm.
So they had something like that, but hospital expenses, are they can cover a big part of things, but it leaves so much uncovered, so much uncovered.
Mm-hmm.
So I have the impression that at the start, uh, when the provincial programs got started, that there was really very little federal assistance
Mm-hmm.
at that time.
Mm-hmm.
There might have been a favorable outlook,
Mm-hmm.
a willingness on the part of the central government to begin to provide federal assistance,
Mm-hmm.
but that took a couple, 3 years.
Mm-hmm.
It wasn't instant, and it wasn't something the programs actually started off with. Okay, and then I started thinking about how whole Washington intends to start off. Okay, and I realized that it intends to start off as uh, something like a Medicare Advantage provider for people um, who are getting Medicare coverage. Okay, and then uh, some other things that would be done to get various forms of federal aid in there from the first for people younger than 65, for children, for TRICARE people. There are a whole series of programs that would actually be contributing federal aid to the state program, actually, right from the very start,
Mm-hmm.
to the extent that 70% of the cost of the program would actually come from the federal programs, whose resources were reallocated to the Universal Health Care Program in the state. And that led me to ask, I know that in the first years, okay, of Canada programs, even though the federal government started to assist the state governments fairly early, in Canada, they were not assisting the state governments with full funding from the first, or the provincial governments, okay, I should say.
Mm-hmm.
In other words, it wasn't a case of full funding from the first.
Mm-hmm.
It was a case of the state putting up most of the funding of the funding for the Medicare program, and then the federal government stepping in and backing the states up.
Mm-hmm.
But it was still the case that the majority of the funding was actually coming from the provincial programs.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas in the whole Washington model, but the majority of the funding would actually be coming from federal programs to start with.
Yeah, that's really interesting.
Yeah, that's very interesting, and it suggests that actually the situation may be more favorable here in the United States for successful state programs to start up and to produce reinforcing effects in seeking national Medicare for all.
Yeah.
So it may turn out that, in fact, that the Canada experience, okay, or the analogy, okay, of Canada,
Mm-hmm.
in some ways, okay, is not like the United States,
Mm-hmm.
okay, and that kind of comparison is actually advantageous to the U.S. situation that we see before us.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, that actually the Canadians started with less federal aid than we would be starting with if the plans of whole Washington actually work out.
Mm-hmm.
So that led me to wonder, why don't we have efforts actually read Berets' efforts to share the whole Washington model right now,
Yeah.
but even before the model is passed, but still share the model to other states where it seems like serious work is going on, in order to get a Medicare for All program in those states. The conservatives, are doing it all the time in terms of the bad things they want to do. They share bad models from state to state all the time. Why can't we share some good models?
No, I agree. I think, yeah, I haven't spoken with Andre recently, but I know that he connected a lot with other. I mean, he named in his interview with you at least one organizer that was down in New Mexico, right? Um,
He did.
I don't know to what extent, but I know he's got some communications with people. And I also know that, this is something that, based on if people, that Georgia has, I don't know how much outreach that she has done, but, she's another person, she and Jen Nye, who I think, but yeah, but there isn't something that is as yet a concerted, organized model that is like an outreach effort to, say, here's the model, here's how it. I mean, but I wouldn't be surprised if that's, like there was a meeting that Georgia and I, a couple of us were on recently, that was healthcare related. That she shared a really, straightforward template about how she set up the 501(c)(4). So, I don't think it would be too difficult to set up, just to write it out. And of course, there's all of the, but just the sort of order of how did we set things up, and it does look different for every state. But yeah, I mean, there should be this.
It may look different for every state, but there are also going to be commonalities.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah,
from state
absolutely.
to state. Okay, and if whole Washington were to share the models to states that have a good chance of being successful, such as states that are on the West Coast and that have certainly a good amount of state resources,
Right.
that kind of sharing would minimize the risk of failure in all the states. But if there were mutual sharing going on continuously, okay, and learning, and then if failures were far less likely, then that would serve to encourage other states and the national movement in general. It would provide a positive strand of feedback to the national movement. Success after success within the states can create a greater momentum for a national movement. Because, as you say, once the movement people get successful in their own states and have the taste of blood, as it were, they would be reinforced to do even more for the national movement.
Yeah, absolutely.
Than they have to do.
Yeah.
Okay, so what I'm saying, I guess, is there should be fighting on all fronts, but planning efforts, consciously planning not only for state level success, but for how state level successes can impact other states and also the national movement itself. In other words, planning communications, planning sharing of knowledge, but planning demonstrations, from state to state, sharing demonstration techniques and activism techniques with the national organizers.
Mm.
There are possibilities for all this going on cross level.
Mm.
And what I'm suggesting is maybe the Red Berets, as the organization that is pursuing a fight on all fronts, a strategy that maybe the Red Berets should begin to engage in that kind, of planning.
Yeah, Lisa and I had talked a while back. We were calling it, we wanted to have a 50-state strategy, and I think we were echoing.
Howard Dean.
Yeah. So, but that's, I don't know. That's one of these things that's like difficult to know where to start. And again, with Red Berets specifically, what I have continually run into is, for me personally, there's the knitting of the berets. The craftivism is a core piece of it for me, and some people may not understand what that is about. Like what does it really mean? It's really, think of the diligence, and the labor that's involved in the, and the connectivity, and also it's about honoring what brought me to this movement, and about, I wanted to be a creative force. I wanted to bring my skill sets to this movement. And as much as I've sort of find time to be, I don't get time to do this cool stuff very often, because I've gotten very involved in, and see, here I was going to say actual organizing. Like, if I could really do it, I would love to figure out how do I get out and really reach and inspire the crafters, and be very publicly visible, like knit-ins, like die-ins, but knit-ins. People can die. They can do their die-in at the same time. That's fine. But I've really wanted to make a visual display of protest, and sort of wake up bring the crafters en masse. And
Yes.
so, but what always ends up happening is, it's like, no, but we've got a ballot initiative to run here. We have distribution to do. We have, national marches that we're planning. And we have a social media presence to build. How am I going to tell everybody about this idea? So that has been one of the reasons why Twitter or online in that way, has been my way to grow it, is because, well, first of all, if you wanted to reach a lot of people with this, you have to push it out. And I've done that by, and I say before too many people started crafting along, we were first crafting for local activists, but then also the whole idea of sending these berets out to people running for office, movement leaders, like Dr. Victoria Dooley and Nina Turner, and then all these people, like we send out a bunch to Columbus, Ohio, for their march, because they had a particular interest. The people running the Ohio march were very interested. We'd love to have Red Berets. Can you send some to us? So, and it would have been fantastic if we had more crafters and resources, and we could have gotten berets to all 56 locations, but we don't have that kind of, grassroots knitting power. But what I want to do, what I always want to return to, but now I've got like all these other things going, and I'm not saying they're less important. Like, that's what I am now. Whether I think I'm disorganized or not, I am an organizer, and I'm an interface between, several different, connected dots.
Sure.
But I do want to say that sometimes there's a level of like resentment because the craft isn't taken seriously. I think a lot of people do take it seriously, so I don't need to get focused on people that have, labeled it as a vanity project or don't take it seriously. It's very serious because these are for national improved Medicare for all, and they're to bring art and a solidarity to the movement, and we can actually grassroots fundraise with them if you need something more tangible. Just then, they're for solidarity. Oh, and if you don't want to raise money for whole Washington, you could just like I brought a bunch of berets to the DC march and people were making donations for those. It was probably, didn't end up amounting to a ton of money, but it was a little bit for them. And the point of the matter is, when it comes to fighting on all fronts, I've seen that as like, I would love to do a bunch of stuff to help promote, for general strike. Sarah Hansen was doing a little something and posted it
Sure.
on Twitter that was just like a little, we were talking about like old school DIY punk patches where it's just like handwritten in kind of blocky kind of letters and it just says strike on it. But you could do that on a beret.
Yeah, I think Joe Nice is very interested in general strikes.
Yeah. So the issue is like trying to grow this movement and trying to be at the intersection of all of it is that I oftentimes am not knitting enough. And so that part of myself gets lost. And that's when I get really tired and angry and burnt out because I then come back to, well, what I thought that I had to give to the Medicare for All movement was this visual, creative imagery and getting it out to nurses and getting it out to doctors and putting this out there because visual imagery is a strong piece. It's powerful. Imagery is powerful. And so when I don't get enough time to craft and I don't know that this is anyone else's issue, I think I have my own issue of I need to be seen as very serious. So I can't just only be knitting berets all the time. But it does turn out to be the case that it's hilarious that anyone thinks that I'm doing that. I haven't had time to just only sit and do berets in quite some time. There's with whole Washington and, the marches and the social media presence and mailing off berets to people who want them. Georgia does a lot of that. But I mean, there's really a ton that goes into it. And so I don't know how we do the outreach to, all the states. It is of interest to me. The place that I would like to have more carved out would be, I don't want the craft to continually be left behind. It doesn't mean that there's not room for MMT policy people and all kinds of organizers. It's just, I would like to consider how can I kind of start to settle into a role where I'm where whatever messaging, where I'm starting to put the berets and who we're crafting for back at the center again, because that kind of gets dissipated and lost. And it does, because not everybody organizing with the red berets is a craftivist. We don't need
Right.
Fine. It's fine. But those of us who do craft, I sometimes do envy the crafters out there who are a little bit more free with their time, that are able to sort of do the goodness of the craft. It's soothing to me, and it focuses my mind, and it helps with my anxiety. All kinds of reasons why, and I enjoy the creativity of it. So these are reasons why, because we also, as organizers, have to look at, if this is a marathon, how do we make ourselves feel whole? And so for me, the knitting needles help me on a lot of levels. And I actually think there's probably a lot of people out there who will love to do something like this behind the scenes. And I guess that's part of the point, it's part of the, hopefully one of the neat outcomes of the documentary is people out there who didn't know anything about this maybe get to see, oh yeah, wow, cool. We're crafting for this.
The other important thing that I see about the craftivism also is that, okay, it's related to the symbolism of solidarity
Mm-hmm.
and how it symbolizes the solidarity that is important to the movement by circulating the products, specifically the berets, okay, and the buttons, and the rest of the merch, and having that symbolize the solidarity of the movement has a consequence in relation to the state-based, okay, as opposed to the national, because it symbolizes the solidarity of the whole movement, both on the state level, okay, and on the national level,
Mm-hmm.
and helps to ensure that people who are working hard on the state level and who are ultimately successful at the state level will not forget that the original purpose was to bring Medicare for all to the whole country. In other words, that builds in the ideal, supports the ideal from the start. And maybe that's why so many of the Red Berets are just as focused on the national effort as they are on the state effort, even when they're out there being activists to accomplish something at the state level.
Mm-hmm.
In other words, people remark over and over again, even when they're questioning the usefulness of the state level efforts, they're also kind of allowing, or pointing out, to be fair, the Red Berets are very, very active at the national level. They're in this effort, okay, at that event, they're doing this, and they've done more than most other groups to push the national level support. But somehow the people who suggest that, who grant that, while they're arguing against the state level efforts, don't see the connection between the Red Berets symbolism in integrating the state level efforts with the national movement.
Mm-hmm.
So I went a long way around there too to try to get to my point. But I think I made that point. Is that the symbolism of the berets is an important solidarity theme that integrates the state level, okay, and the national level movements.
Yeah.
And it's too bad that some of the partisans for the national level movements don't understand this.
Yeah. Yeah, because so what do I want to? Self and dogs barking. There's this increased sense of urgency. Like I was thinking about just my own. I don't know. This all will sound very whole Washington related, but I mean, just thinking about we just need to bring it to local actions, and whether I. Okay, I can speak. I can I can get my thoughts together. I just been thinking a lot lately about how could I get the most bang for my buck when it comes to, because what are the, like I want to get together again with the person who volunteers her time to do the Red Berets website and kind of put some of these updates on it. Yeah, I don't want to leave anybody out, but I will. I have to start somewhere, and I'm sure there's a lot of independent media that I don't know about. So I I want to put some of the links of. I think a good place to start is definitely to put some of the media that has been very supportive and understanding and agreeing with this fight on all fronts. So people that have been very supportive to the Red Berets and whole Washington, and highlight them on the Red Berets website. And the work that we're doing together, obviously. And it needs to be an ongoing project of what all is helpful to have on that website. But my point is, I'm just thinking so much about what could I go out and distribute to people, or I've also thought about like my own Senator Darnell and Representative Jenkins and Fay, who, because I'm here, we are thinking about Nancy Pelosi, so I'm then thinking, well, maybe I just need to get one of those little rain covered chairs and go sit outside their house. And I can live stream part of it and be like, I'm out here, but have a sign that says, ask me why I'm knitting, or I don't. We can think about that. What would be the best question to ask if I'm going to go knit in a public space? But my point is, I want to get this information out to people. I want to envision that there's a way that we can get more people engaged and listening to this program, and to Punch Up Pod that we were on last night, Georgia Davenport and myself, and plenty of other awesome independent media. Because to circle back around to what Mariana Everson said about we need to grow, because it doesn't matter. Like if yes, I would be happily go out and let people know. Like I feel like if I'm out knitting and I bring the sign of Scott Denoyer of Danny out. We had the big sign that was made that's got my life for $20. And
That's powerful.
stuff that's powerful and that's out in a public place, and ask me why I'm knitting. And then if someone asked me why I'm knitting, I'd say, well, I'm knitting. How do you feel right now with this with your insurance, with our system? Like, do you feel that we can do better than this? I mean, how are I don't know. I'm just getting ahead of myself, but the point is that we don't
I
have
understand
enough.
you're just trying to formulate the idea.
Yeah. Well, I'm trying to formulate how we get out there and let people know all of these resources. Yes, I guess I can understand how people would be concerned that, well, that's splitting the energy. I would like to have, at least as far as Red Berets is concerned, I would like to have this information available to people. To what here are, some excellent. Here's a start. There are more than this, but here are some who have platformed the Red Berets in whole Washington, and their solidarity independent media sources. Here's a start, and list some of those. And then we also have our crafting thing, and we have we're going out to support this event protesting Pelosi in solidarity with March for Medicare for All.
Which is, speaking of the march, not the march for Medicare for All, but the Pelosi event.
Yeah.
Oh, there's Jabari. Hi, Jabari. How you doing? So, has there been a special effort to invite the doctors and nurses to join, in that event?
I will. One of the things that I'm going to do now that you've asked that question, well, besides my little piece of informal outreach, when you had Daniel on the show the other night. And I know he's not a physician, but he is, he's a member of Physicians for a National Health Plan. So I did that little piece of due diligence and asked him if he would come along. And I think he'll check his schedule and he'll do his best. Nurse-wise, Catherine Lewandowski, who's the vice chair of Whole Washington, she sent a message. I didn't invite her, but she sent a message to me just the other day saying, this event protesting Pelosi sounds really like I need to be there. So I want to be there. I'm going. I signed up for it, and it happens to be my weekend off. So I'm gonna drive down. And I said, I'm only going to be there for a day. And she said, a day? That's no fun. Well, anyway, so she's going to try and get a couple of other local organizers. But so I know that Catherine Lewandowski. So we have one nurse from Washington State going. I feel like, so what I'm going to do is go online and sort of at, the two local organizers and probably Shahid Buttar and kind of ask, like, what are you doing, for outreaches, because I'm sure they're doing, but I kind of feel like I can't really speak to what's happening with the local organizing because I'm not there in their network, and I'm not sitting in on organizing meetings with this. It's kind of like it's their local action and I'm showing up to it. That's
Yes.
And I will do what I do on Twitter. I'll do my darndest to at as many people. That's kind of like, it turned out that Sharif was also simultaneously reaching out to Shahid Buttar. But I mean, I'm very informal like that on Twitter. I just am like, and thankfully Sharif is as well. That's really how everything with March for Medicare for All is just at,
Yes.
And it works, it, because the people can ignore it if they don't want to do it, but it was neat because Shahid Buttar, got back, pretty well. He liked it straight away and then sent a DM saying, yeah, I'd like to do this. I'd like to hear more about the event. So I feel like I can't give you all the details for that except to say, bring in a nurse and I've invited Daniel, but yeah. Was that your question?
Yes, that was certainly.
Oh my gosh, that was so. I'm so sorry. So remiss of me because Dr. Jarvis, Dr. Jarvis is coming. So
Joe Jarvis is coming too.
Joe Jarvis is coming too. So yes.
That's
I can't believe I forgot him. Oh well, I didn't entirely forget him. I remembered him now. So yeah, which will be completely amazing. He's wonderful.
Okay, so we're at roughly 10:14 now.
Yeah.
I'm going to turn to the comments that we have, and the questions we have. Okay, I have Jabari Morris who has joined us.
Hello, Jabari.
Okay, I believe that Jabari is really simply trolling here.
Okay,
and
well.
So I'm not going to take up his comments. Okay, if others want to take up the comments, that's fine.
Yeah.
But they're clearly trolling comments, so I'm not going to bother with them. But I will start at the beginning, and I'll do what I normally do, which is to go over the various comments, okay, that we've had, and see if you want to comment, okay, on any of them.
Yeah.
Amber Grigo says, some folks in the MMT community want to put people on a timeline for learning, and they conveniently forget it takes time to absorb the material. And she advises you to take all the time that you need.
Well, Audible and knitting work very well together. it's unfortunate. Yours are not on Audible yet, are they, Joe?
No, I'm not on Audible yet, no.
But I should ask your permission for like a chapter if I want to get on my little, I do enjoy reading aloud, so I don't want to, with copyright or anything like that, but I wondered how you feel about me reading portions or pieces of it aloud, like on my YouTube channel. I don't know.
I would love it if you did, Laura.
Okay, so I have permission. So that might motivate me. Sometimes reading aloud was always a big thing in my family. My mom and I took turns as I was coming up through the learning. It's just something that it's easier for me to kind of do when I read aloud. So there we go.
Okay, great. And Kay agrees. She says it took her some time to get MMT. Then it makes perfect sense now. Kay says privatizing Medicare would be very bad for all. Indeed, it would be. Indeed, it would be. And there's a big threat now in the area of what's going on with the, I guess they're called direct contracting entities, the E stands, okay, for entity. And what they seem to be dedicated to do is to fool people to get off of traditional Medicare policies they may have, and to get on a type of policy which comes through the DCEs, which is very similar to Medicare Advantage policies. And this is going through the Center for Medicare, okay, and Medicaid Innovation, CMMI, which is a subsidiary, okay, of CMS, and which is being headed up by Liz Fowler, who is famous because she, as a lobbyist, helped to write the Affordable Care Act with many of the worst provisions in the Affordable Care Act. Okay, I went over this with Daniel Lyde on Tuesday, and we talked about this but to a great extent. Okay, at that point, but this is something we really have to fight against. We have to get the DCE program out of the CMMI, and while we're at it, we have to end the consulting there, okay, of Ezekiel Emanuel, because he is working hand in glove with Liz Fowler over there, I believe. And Evelina Pons says, just read that Yellen wants to abolish the destructive debt limit. Well, she may want to, but she doesn't have any power to do that. However, she does have the power to mint the $100 trillion coin. She is the government official, in fact, who would have to give the order to the mint to create that coin and then to take it up to the Federal Reserve in New York for deposit. And if Yellen were to give such an order to the director of the mint, within 3 days, the Treasury Department would have $100 trillion in the public purse. It couldn't spend $100 trillion, but it could spend whatever is appropriated by Congress, and it could pay back all of the federal debt that falls due during the next 12 months and beyond. Pay it back when it falls due so as not to have inflation. And within a year's time, it would be possible. I don't know the exact figure here because I'd have to find out what the level of short-term debt is among the $28 trillion, okay, of debt. But I'm pretty sure that within a year's time, $8 trillion of the $28 trillion would be paid down, making the debt ceiling law a dead letter. And of course, as time went on, more and more of the debt would be paid down until after 30 years, there would be zero federal debt unless, of course, the Treasury Department itself were to decide to issue more debt for various purposes. In other words, just because the private sector wanted federal debt as an investment vehicle that the federal government is sure to pay back, there might be a lot of debt that was issued for that purpose, but then it would be clear that it was for that purpose, and it wouldn't be any part of a campaign of terrorism that is waged, generally speaking, in connection with the debt. And that is the very basis for the opposition of Manchin and Sinema right now to the reconciliation bill. Mm-hmm. So, going further with comments. So Kay remarks, now it will happen again on December 3rd. I think what you're referring to here is that the government funding in the continuing resolution will only cover the government until December 3rd. Okay, and that is true, but we have to remember that the debt ceiling crisis is coming, we're in it now, of course, but the federal government is scheduled to run out of money sometime between October 15th and November 15th. We don't know exactly when, okay, but Yellen will have a dry Treasury spending account sometime during that particular period. And it's going to be necessary for the federal government either to mint the $100 trillion coin or to mint a smaller denomination, a platinum coin, or simply to repeal the debt limit or to suspend it for another period of time, which would mean it would come back to haunt us later, as it has been haunting us for the last 10 years, because no one will take the decisive action of just getting rid of that particular provision. Actually, I would rather have the platinum coin as the solution to this. And the reason why is because it functionally kills the debt ceiling law. But at the same time, it kills austerity and also debt terrorism as well. And just getting rid of the debt ceiling law is not going to do that last piece, which is so important for us. It'll still be possible for people to propagandize the level of the debt and talk about how horrible it is and talk about how our grandchildren are going to have to pay it off and use that as an excuse for ensuring that our grandchildren don't even have decent lives to live, because the climate emergency will have ruined everyone's lives by then. So we have to stop that kind of thing from happening. In case as our local canton, Stark County ballot is up now, but it's useless to me. She says Columbus is the only blue spot in Ohio anymore, but not as blue as it needs to be. Aren't there blue spots in the Cleveland area, Kay? And Lana greets us all. And Kay says, you did good. No, Laura. Carmen says she's happy to be here. Lana asks, when will the documentary be out?
Kenny said January or February of next year, but I guess we'll see. And then nearer updates to look for, because he's got a couple of interviews scheduled. He was hoping to have, because currently the website is healthcare.movie, but he's going to be putting out a new website that has a lot more material on it. But he wanted to make sure there were a couple of interviews he wanted to make sure and get so that he could include on the next when he launches the new website. But that should be, I don't know, I would think hopefully by the 15th of October, but just give or take, but coming here soon in the next few weeks. But yeah, basically he kind of has his list of interviews that he has yet to do. There aren't very many, and kind of direct actions that are already on the books. And then, he's got his assistant or his editor, and he'll be entering into that kind of final, the serious phase of editing here in a couple of months, pretty soon. So that's the update.
Has he got a title for the documentary yet?
Nope, not that I know of yet. He may, but I don't know it if he does.
Okay, that was asked, so I thought I would ask you.
Sure.
I see Jabari has a series of trollish comments here.
Well, that's not. I mean, Jabari, if you're still listening,
I'm listening.
not you. But just, but before you showed up, I think that I spoke really spaciously around, the more that I'm learning about MMT, the more I can have a greater understanding and respect for people's concerns that, like this, first of all, just getting the knowledge of MMT out to as many people as possible is of the utmost priority. And something you may not know, Jabari, but the Red Berets did it was a short but concerted effort around the time when Bernie was running. We did quite a lot of amplification of Stephanie Kelton's feed. We had these little projects where, particularly we were amplifying Warren Gunnels, or as Lisa Theobald, suggested, let's go and do, some serious amplification of Stephanie Kelton. And so, it's something where I can, the more I personally, because many Red Berets are well versed in MMT, I personally have not been. So the more I'm starting to learn about it, the more I can be quite respectful of how important it actually is to get this out to people. So I don't need to go all into that, Jabari, except for the point that prior to you showing up, I had actually voiced that quite clearly. Well, I can really understand, the more I'm learning about it, why people would have concerns about people, about the possibility of splitting our energy, and just concerns about that. So I don't know if that helps at all, other than the fact that I don't view any of these relationships or this issue as completely static. We have to grow together. We have to continue to learn. We should continue to look into what somebody is doing that we maybe didn't know that they were doing before. And again, with Joe was also mentioning, what a valuable resource that the Mac and Cheese podcast is. And I would feel, increasingly more welcome to go and listen to that and participate in that. If it feels like someone shows up to this and doesn't have the intention of leaving remarks that are just obviously meant to undermine. I don't know if any of that means something to you, other than I think that we need to, we should at least respect that we're each working in service to this movement. And I'll leave it at that. That you would hear those things if you tune into the earlier part of the podcast.
Okay, thank you, Laura, for those comments.
Yeah.
Okay, is there anything else that you'd like to say about fighting on all fronts strategy?
Uh, I'm sure there was. We need to make everybody, we need to do our utmost to help people feel welcome, because as we talked about before, it's definitely an interconnected movement, and there is a place for everyone. So fighting on all fronts, it's not nearly as simple as a state versus national narrative. It's literally getting involved at the local community level, and whether that be that you're out canvassing, doing literature drops to spread the knowledge of MMT, or you're growing a Medicare for All database through direct action protesting Representative Kilmer for not co-sponsoring Rep. Jayapal's legislation, and bringing coalitions together that way, or gathering signatures for a direct democracy. Because let's face it, like, people want to talk about, I always think it's interesting when people say, I'm for a general strike. Yeah, I'm for a general strike too. And I'm also for, if you're for a general strike, I am for all of the states that do have the authority and power to run direct democracy ballot initiatives on lots of different issues, right? I'm for us doing that, because we actually need to, I think the overwhelming majority of people understand that we have no representation, but we do still have some power with direct democracy. So for me, fighting on all fronts, yep, I want to share the knowledge of MMT. I want to let people know about independent media sources that are going to give them more information that they need on Medicare for All and intersectional issues. I will still support candidates if they're activists like me. That's my sort of litmus test for a candidate. I really need to see them out in the community doing the work, regardless of whatever party that they're running in. I'm along with everybody else where I'm not putting very many eggs in the organizing basket. But when I see someone like Rebecca Parson, whose background is in direct action, and Jason Call, who's been an organizer.
Yes, and at this point, I should announce that on Saturday, my guest is going to be Rebecca Parson.
Oh, awesome.
At 9 p.m. We have made a connection, and she has agreed to come on to the show.
Well, that is excellent news. Thank you. Yes, so it's all of these things. They're all part of the interconnected fabric, connective tissue. And, if one of the things speaks more, it speaks to you, then do that thing, But I guarantee you that if I'm out getting a signature from somebody, letting them know we have no representation, we don't have any power to negotiate the price of pharmaceuticals, sign here. I got somebody who wasn't even supportive of Medicare for All and not supportive of whole Washington, but when I told them, this bill, if passed, will give us the power to negotiate the price of pharmaceuticals. Do you think Big Pharma is corrupt? Oh, hell yeah, I'll sign that, right? So this is kind of the crossover. It's about getting out into the community. That's what fighting on all fronts is. It's like, and how do we organize online and kind of also do enough offline to where we're kind of bridging that gap. And connecting that up. It's about connecting. It's about connecting people, connecting coalitions, and building a bottom-up game, ground game. And you can do that through lots of different actions and many, many, many things that are in service to achieving national.
Right. And if you develop a ground game that's going to work at the state level, that ground game is going to be useful at the federal level also.
Well, yes, it is, because obviously we demonstrate through through our events that the people of organizers of whole Washington, and that includes people from the People's Party of Washington, the Green Party of Washington, and Our Revolution, Bernie Kratz Coalition, lots and lots of different coalition partners were absolutely willing and ready to sign up and go. There wasn't actually any action there for Whole Washington because there wasn't anything there. Rep. Kilmer has nothing to do with Whole Washington. We can keep asking him as a Washington resident, will you sign this? We need everybody's signature for this. I'm just saying that we definitely mobilize people to put the pressure at the national level, and organizers are more than happy to get out there and do that on a Friday afternoon when really there's lots of other stuff people would rather be doing. So, and we have that community to call on. Thank you to Whole Washington. So,
Absolutely. Absolutely. That is correct. I think we have reached the end of the comments.
we had a quiet evening, but that's okay because
I think we got some good thinking done.
Yeah.
And that's the important thing. That's what we were intending to do tonight anyway,
Yes.
I believe.
Yes.
So, are there any final comments, folks? See, the final comment from Dolores Pierce was, I don't agree with Steve Grumbine on his limitations and strategy for Medicare for All. I left him several years ago. It's easy to spot his disciples. Well, thank you, Dolores. I certainly agree with all parts of that particular statement.
Yeah, I mean, from my point of view, it would be one of the things that I enjoy doing. I think one of the reasons you'll never see, my tweets just I don't get thousands of likes or retweets, is I literally retweet so many other people, and I retweet the comments from other people. I enjoy that. I enjoy amplifying other people. I would enjoy retweeting and amplifying the Mac and Cheese podcast. It's difficult now because I'm not gonna amplify someone who is adamantly against what it is that we're doing. That makes it tough, and that's a crummy situation to be in because I can obviously see the enormous value in educating people on MMT and on getting all of this independent media and all of these very well-versed voices out there. I'm appreciative of you, Joe, and I can amplify Stephanie Kelton, but it would be great if there wasn't this kind of contention. And I'm open-minded that it doesn't have to be this way, but I won't go out and actively amplify people that are adversarial to the work that we're doing because we're growing community, and it's just that simple. I'm not gonna. I already kind of learned my lesson through the early stages of these arguments, which is when Georgia and I went out and said, if you don't agree with Whole Washington, maybe we can all organize for the marches for Medicare for All. That's what we're doing. Well, I would like to think in good faith that I could direct some people to an effort and not feel that later on down the line, it's going to turn out to be people trying to push and alienate the very people who informed that this was going on. So, you know what? Water can go under the bridge, but it's not going to do that if people are going to continue to come by and make these comments. I love to amplify people. I love to retweet people on social media. And there's absolutely no reason to be adversarial towards an organization that is led by nurses, made up of people whose heart and soul is just absolutely in this movement and have done, like, I can't even tell you how many hours that somebody like Georgia Davenport has put into not just Whole Washington, but into the national movement, into candidates for Medicare for All, and into just all kinds of things. So I don't need to go all there other than to say like it's people couldn't measure it. Like I don't think you could even calculate if you get down to the hours of craftivism and you add together all of the different hours and minutes and efforts that whole Washington volunteers have dedicated to the national movement. I wouldn't know how to estimate that, but it's
Yes,
a
I
lot.
wouldn't either.
But it's a lot. There we go.
It would be hard to estimate also for others how many hours I've put in since late in 2009 on the MMT movement.
Right.
Believe me, it has been a lot of hours. I have hundreds of blog posts and hundreds of live streams now that were on MMT as well. So, Kay says, thank you all for a great discussion again. I'm getting tired too. I love you all. We love you too, Kay. And we really do. And Lana says, I don't blame you, Laura. Hopefully it will smooth out as we go. Well, I think it already has smoothed out.
Yeah.
There's been a considerable amount of peace, certainly for the last month.
Yeah.
And I'm hoping it will continue.
Yes, it should. Yeah. And and like I said, I really have an open mind. I imagine the more that I continue down the journey of learning MMT, the more open my mind is, the more sense of urgency it's going to build, so, again, if this was always a matter of, hey, we need you all to be sharing MMT, great. I'm here, and I'm willing to share it, and I always was, and people generally though do better with an invitation than they do,
Well, I think you've been sharing quite a lot of the MMT posts I've been putting up.
Yeah.
Concerning the debt ceiling.
Yes, I'm happy to. Anything that you tag me in, my rule of thumb is you tag me in it, I'm going to retweet it. Honestly, if it's something important that you've deemed that you want, and you at me, that's it. I'm retweeting it. And every time when I get Stephanie Kelton's, not newsletter, but what's it called?
Her Substack.
Yes, her Substack. I open the email and I immediately share it to a tweet. It's like this is, so I don't want to say that nothing has come out of all this. This has furthered and pushed me to take heed and take and come to this awareness. And so I guess if we want to see that as a good thing, and it is a good thing because we're in conversation now, even if there's not this lovely meeting of the minds, but the Red Berets are here for MMT, but we're here to continue building solidarity because this is what we've always done. So, and we have to build community, and whole Washington and other orgs is how we do that. Look at what Scott's doing out in with the suicide prevention, and how he made this beautiful flag that has the apple, the Cross New York Health, and now everybody that he went and talked to during Suicide Prevention Month, he's gone and talked about, we have to pass New York Health Act because mental health care is a human right, and he tells Danny's story related to that, and now this is even more powerful. And of course, he's always saying, and we need Medicare for all. I mean, you've had Scott on here. Scott will never he does not have any kind of a difficult time telling people, well, this is how you do it. And he demonstrates that he leads by example. And he
doesn't have a difficult time when it comes to saying, that MMT is great either.
Exactly. No, he's long been a supporter and understood it. And he's connecting the apples. He's connecting the coasts. And with his Medicare for all March for Medicare for All flag, and he's just always been someone who I connected up with really early as being absolutely a solidarity organizer. So thank you, Scott, if you listen to this, and Anna.
So Dolores says, after Lana's comment, thank you for great discussion and show. I love shows with Laura, okay, and other Red Berets and whole Washington movement. The Medicare for all is crucial.
Yeah.
And we all believe it is. And Dolores says, good night, everyone.
Good night, Dolores, and good night,
And thank you
Lana.
for Dolores and Lana. And thank you for sharing, and thank you for your comments and your conversation. And K-Eds, the news says no vote tonight on the reconciliation bill. Why not? Because Nancy Pelosi doesn't have the votes. And that is very good news. If she had the votes, there would have been a vote tonight. Since she doesn't have the votes, it means the progressives are holding firm, which also means if they hold firm and they keep holding firm,
Yeah.
they will eventually get the reconciliation bill.
Yeah. Oh, please. Yeah. Well, it is a good sign, like you say. So.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay, there's a final comment by Dave Leith. I don't think I'm going to read that one because I don't think it's, I appreciate it, but, I'm not going to read it because at this point, we're trying our best to make peace.
Oh, yeah. Okay. I was going to say, I know Dave, Dave Leith. He's an organizer with, but that's okay. I can understand if it's, but hi, Dave.
Yeah. Hi, Dave. I like the comment.
Yeah. But thanks for tuning in at the last, good to imagine you watching and stuff, Dave, and miss you.
And so Lana says, good night. I missed part of the show, but glad to catch this last hour. And we're glad you caught it too. And we greatly appreciate it, okay, because I at least know that you've been moving into your house. And I'm flattered that after the moving was over a little bit earlier tonight, that you saw fit to come here. So I certainly appreciate that. And Dave says he takes no offense. Thank you, Dave.
Well, he probably, I already said enough, Dave. Like, already, I said positive stuff and some pushback. I feel like I was very spacious at the beginning and would like to try to find a way, but anyway.
Okay, good night again, everyone.
Good night.
Have a wonderful night. And remember, Rebecca is coming on Saturday night, okay, at 9.
Wonderful news. Okay, thank you.
Okay, good night.
Good night.
Okay.